Hello everybody and welcome to a video on the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel. I'm Spencer, host of Constructive Criticism and Limited Time Only, two podcasts about getting better at Magic the Gathering. Today is Wednesday Night Warrior. I'm a little bit late. I usually post this on Tuesdays so people can watch it on Wednesday. Today I'm going to be recording on Wednesday, stuff like that. But it's nice to be back. I took maybe 2 weeks off. Just been really busy at work. Really busy with my baby. My baby got sick. I got sick. So we're feeling better. Baby's feeling better. But some exciting stuff happened this week in MPG, and I wanted to talk about it. And that's some rules changes that are happening in Magic the Gathering. I specifically want to talk about the rules about reminding your opponent about optional choices. So a lot of confusion is going on about this rules, and a lot of people are confusing this rule for trigger rules. So early in my Magic career, there were tons of changes to triggers rules. One of the changes was that you always had to remind your opponent about their triggers, or you get a warning. And then later, it was that all triggers basically could be missed. That you didn't have to remind your opponent, and if they missed a trigger, you got to decide whether or not to put it on the stack later if it was discovered. And that basically everything was MA. So this is not that. So, for example, back in the day, I was at a PPTQ for, I think it was like Dragons of Darkir Limited, and my opponent had a Whisperwood Elemental in play. And that card has an upkeep trigger that at the beginning of your upkeep you take the top card of your library and you put it into play face down as a 2/2 that can flip up for its converted mana cost. Uh, if it's a creature. And this is my opponent missed the trigger a couple of times, and the player sitting next to us, he got really upset. He was like, "You're cheating by not like you. He has to resolve that trigger. It's not a May ability." And I was like, "That's not how the rules work." And a lot of people think that this is changing that rule. It's not changing that rule. You can still miss triggers. We'll actually get back to that story because I want to bring up that story again later on in the video with one of my points. However, this new rule does affect things like Path to Exile. So, for example, Path to Exile, for example, is an instant. Exile target creature. Its controller may search its land for a basic, search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle his or her library. So, in the old version of the rules, you would cast a Path to Exile, and if your opponent didn't go get a land, and chose not to do it, that was legal. Like, that was a legal thing that they could choose not to do, right? They don't have to go get a land because it's a May ability. That was fine. You just assumed that they weren't going to do it, and you could move on. The new rule says that you have to remind them that they get the option. So, cast Path to Exile. Wait a second. Okay, would you like to go get your land? Yes? No? Okay. That's the new rule. You have to, if they're not doing anything, you have to remind them. So, a lot of people don't like this rule change. They're saying, oh, this hurts me as a competitive player. Now I'm losing an advantage that I have when my opponent forgets to do something. And I can see that side of the argument, but I think in the long run it's probably better for you. And the reason for that is that when new players come into the game, you want them to feel welcome and friendly. And too often we think that outsmarting people and like getting people, as Magic players would say, is the most important part of being a spike and the thing that's going to get you the most points at the end of the day to swing your percentage to the most wins. And that's really not true. That's not really what's going to get you the most edge. The tiny edges that you get are from little things adding up, but you should be focusing on, better play, sequencing your spells correctly, tapping your mana correctly, not trying to get your opponent. Too often people think of stories like Patrick Chapin's Jedi Mind Trick stories as like the way that the pros are good at being pros. But that's not really true. The truth is that you're going to win more matches in the long run by just playing good solid Magic than you are by trying to get somebody. So, while yes, this takes away an edge that you could gain, it doesn't take away a very important edge, and in the long run, it will make more players play the game, which will be better for you. Especially when you think about players coming from a Magic Online experience or an MPG Arena experience, where maybe they don't even think about that kind of stuff because the game does it for them typically. So if we're reminding them, it mimics the type of Magic that they typically would play. I'm not saying that that's the way I would want it to be. I like the fact that I can outplay my opponent and they can forget their triggers. But I think that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's whatever. I don't necessarily like the change in the way that it's implemented. specifically because I think that like if I'm getting punished for if I also forget, which is fine, it's whatever. But it's also inconsistent. So that's actually my only problem with this rule change. Like at the end of the day, is that uh, the conversation that I had, right, where this opponent that's not even my opponent, the guy sitting next to my opponent, is berating me and calling me a cheater for telling my opponent he's missed his trigger. We called the judge over. The judge told me I was correct, and he just kept going. And the problem is that when there's inconsistencies in rules, it causes these issues where this player's being very rude to me, and I think that more of those situations arise when you have the difference between this ability that people think is a trigger and actual triggers. And I wish that we could have an all or nothing. Like, if we're going to do it one way, right? If we're going to make us remind our opponents of things, we should just do that. I don't like it as much as not having to remind them because it puts the burden on me as their opponent. But if we're going to do it, it should be across the board, I think. It's tough, but I think that we just have to pick a lane. Now, how does this impact you? Probably not very much. You probably have reminded your opponent to grab a basic land off of their Ghost Quarter Path to Exile plenty of times. And at the end of the day, like like I said before, the way you're going to win most of your matches is just by playing good Magic. You're this this sucks in some cases, right? Like, sure, if it happens that them getting that land is going to win them that PPTQ, that's fine. That's what the card does. Uh, I don't know. It's a fine line, but I think that there are people that want it to work this way, and we kind of have to accept that and just play our best Magic, right? We can't go around saying like if ands or buts when this is the new rule. I do think um, that consistency would be better. I do know that there was another trigger change. I believe it had to do with things like exert and assuming how triggers are resolving. You can look all of this up at blogs.magicjudges.org. Um, but I think that at the end of the day, what we should be focusing on is not trying to get somebody to do something and not making rules abusable. Because in the old situation, it was pretty easy to distract. I think that a lot of people thought that it was really easy to distract your opponent from getting that basic land, and therefore you could trick them into not getting it, and then your card would become significantly better. And that's really not fair. Making rules in a way that encourages you to be shady is not really a good set of rules at the end of the day for Magic the Gathering because it incentivizes players to be mean and hurtful, and it makes the game less fun for a lot of people. And this way makes it fun for more people. And I don't think it actually takes fun away from the players who are spiky and who are there to win. So that's my thoughts on this rules change. Please leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. I look forward to seeing them. If you have any examples other than Ghost Quarter and Path to Exile that were mentioned in the article, leave them down below so people know what kind of things this is impacting. Probably a bigger impact on Modern than any other format because of how highly played those two cards specifically are, but it's either way pretty cool. Don't forget to check out our sponsor or not our sponsor, but this is posted at puremtgo.com. You can check out puremtgo.com to see all the other amazing content on there. Their sponsor is MTGO Traders. You can check them out. Let them know that Spencer Howland from Constructive Criticism sent you. And then, yeah, you can check out our actual sponsor, Flipside Gaming. Flipside Gaming, you go to flipsidegaming.com, use the code CCMTG at checkout to get a small chunk off your order, and then they give me a little bit of a kickback. So we really appreciate them. You can also go to patreon.com/CCMTG to look at all of the content that we do here. Everything is appreciated, starting at $1 more per month. Anything that you see fit, I really, really do appreciate it. So that's it for this week. We'll see you guys all next week with another video. And yeah, we're really excited to get back into Magic after a couple sick weeks. And thank you. Don't forget to check out the podcast, constructyourcriticism.com, and leave a like, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys all next time.